The US dollar palladium price, which is shown in red, gained a huge 48% on average in 2019, setting numerous price records along the way. The rhodium price in light blue gained the most, up 73%. The platinum price, shown in dark blue, fell on average by 1% during the year. But as a result, again, as we mentioned earlier, the dollar basket price, which is shown in beige, increased by 27% on average. And with a 9% weakening of the rand, we saw the rand basket price in gray increasing by 38%. This slide shows the diversified basket of the metals that we produce. Firstly, the relative size of the charts reflects the size of revenue, which increased by 33% in 2019, driven by the increasing basket price to reach 100 billion rand. Platinum accounted for 39% in the previous year, but this was with a slightly disappointing price performance last year. Its contribution dropped to 29 billion. This was massively outweighed by the palladium's contribution to the basket price, which is now 40% of the total, and rhodium, which has increased to 18% of the basket, highlighting both their relative but also their absolute contributions to the basket. Overall, we see in the short and the medium term demand outlook for the metals and the basket of metals that we mine as positive across all the metals that we produce. On the left-hand side, just a reminder, I know most of you know this inside out, but as a reminder, platinum is generally shared, the demand for platinum generally shared fairly equally amongst the automotive market, jewelry, and industrial. And generally, we have investment running between 3 and 5%. However, this past year, we saw investment demand exceptionally strong at 1.1 million ounces. Industrial demand was strong, and we continue to see potential growth. Jewelry demand remained a little bit mixed and did decline a bit in last year, but we see the potential again for that to stabilize and to increase again, largely on the back of the market development that we're doing in China, but also the growth that we're seeing in India. In the automotive demand, over the last number of years, we've been seen very strong declines in diesel, light-duty diesel in particular in Europe. And what we saw in 2019 was a much smaller demand drop in absolute vehicle numbers, but with the size of vehicles increasing, we saw actually a very limited amount of ounce drop in the automotive market, particularly in Europe. And what we're starting to see is increasing demand in the heavy-duty market, particularly because of emission regulations coming out of China and India. In the medium term, so that was all what happened last year. In the medium term, though, I think the potential substitution of platinum back into the gasoline autocats will drive strong platinum demand due to both automotive demand growth, so absolute amount of vehicles, but also the increasing loadings that are coming from emission standards. And then also what we will see is an increasing demand coming from heavy-duty vehicles as well, again as a result of vehicle numbers increasing and also increased loadings. In the two charts on the right-hand side, in both palladium and rhodium, the demand is dominated by the gasoline autocat sector. While industrial demand for both of those metals seems to be weakening a little, and in our view, that's largely just due to response to high prices. Automotive demand is rising, in particular due to the rising emission legislation in many countries, but largely driven by China and India. So notwithstanding a slight drop in vehicle numbers last year, the increased amount of ounces due to what I've mentioned earlier, increase in regulation to try and get lower levels of emissions is driving the demand for both palladium and rhodium. And so we see the outlook for palladium and rhodium demand in the short and medium term extremely positive over that time period. So it's the fundamentals of demand for both palladium and rhodium is what's been driving the underlying increase in price. Palladium, if you look at the charts on the top in gray, you'll see that the palladium market's been in deficit for some time. And we can see that the current material deficit being sustained again this year. Rhodium has been moving steadily from a surplus in 2015 to a deficit in 2019, with a larger deficit expected again this year. With the price of palladium reaching double that of the platinum price in 2019, the concept of replacing palladium in some of the gasoline catalyst converters with platinum has become increasingly likely to occur, but again, not likely to happen in the very short term.